Hello students, I am Dr. Beena P, Assistant Professor of Physics. Today I have taken up diffraction of light, which is a topic under optics to be studied by BSc Physics students. Let's see what is diffraction. We have learnt always that light travels in a straight line, which is also called rectilinear propagation of light. To understand this phenomena, let us take up this figure. S is a source of light, and aperture is a small opening, and we have a screen at a certain distance from the aperture CD. Now the light from the source S travels along a straight line and arrives at A on the screen. Similarly, another ray from S travels through the opening and reaches B. So light has to travel through the opening and should fall between A and B, and this region should be illuminated or form a brighter region. Above A and below B, the region should be dark or a shadow region. But truth is that the light from S bends at C and D and reaches A dash as shown in the dotted line. And hence, region between A dash and B dash becomes illuminated instead of region between A and B. The shadow region forms above A dash and below B dash. Intensity of light goes on decreasing above and below the brighter region. This shows that light is bending at the corners of the aperture. Let us take up the next case. Here, instead of an aperture, we have placed an obstacle in the path of a light. Now light is reaching the screen above and below the obstacle. So region AB should be a shadow region and region above A and below B should be a brighter region. But instead, we observe that the light bends at the edges C and D of the obstacle and reaches the screen A dash and B dash. So, we see that the light from the brighter region has encroached the shadow region. These observations leads to the definition of diffraction. Diffraction is bending of light at the edges of the aperture or obstacle and spreading of light in the geometrical shadow. Normally, we don't observe diffraction always because this phenomenon is noticeable only when the size of the obstacle or aperture is comparable with the wavelength of light, approximately between 4000 to 7000 angstrom. Here we have an intensity distribution graph of a diffraction pattern. In the illuminated region between AB, we have a central maxima at O. The intensity goes on decreasing as we move away from the illuminated region towards to the shadow region. In the illuminated region, actually we are expecting very brighter side. But we observe alternate dark and bright bands instead of complete brightness of decreasing intensity in the illuminated region. In the shadow region, we don't observe complete darkness, but the illumination from the brighter region encroaches into the shadow region. Let us summarize the observations understood till now. According to the theory of rectilinear propagation, light travels in a straight line. But careful observation reveals that light bends around the corners of the obstacles or narrow slit-like apertures, and hence the light enters into the geometrical shadow. This deviation from rectilinear propagation was first studied by Francisco Grimaldi in 1600, and it was called as diffraction. The effect is Characteristics of wave phenomena occurring whenever a portion of wavefront is obstructed. According to Huygens wave theory, every progressive wave produces secondary waves and its envelope forms a secondary wavefront. While explaining the wave theory of light, Huygens described that each point on a wave could produce its own wavelets, which then add together to form a wavefront. An opaque body placed exactly between the screen and the point source casts an intricate shadow made up of bright and dark bands. Now we know what is diffraction. Let us take up types of diffraction. The diffraction phenomena are of two categories. One is Fresnel's diffraction and the second is Fraunhofer diffraction. Diffraction phenomenon requires the source, obstacle or aperture, and a screen. In Fresnel's diffraction, the distance between the screen and the aperture and the source remains finite. In Fraunhofer diffraction, the distance between the source and the aperture and screen remains infinite. In Fresnel's diffraction, since the distance is finite, no lens is required to make the rays parallel or to converge. But in Fraunhofer diffraction, since the distance is infinite, lens has to be used to converge the rays or make them parallel. Third, in Fresnel's diffraction, we normally take point sources as shown in the figure 1. Hence, we have spherical or cylindrical wavefronts. But if we observe the second picture, that is in Fraunhofer diffraction, since the distance between the source and the obstacle is infinite, the light forms a plane wavefront which has to be converged and brought to the screen using a convex lens, which is also shown in the second picture. Since you have already studied interference in earlier classes, let us draw some differences between two light phenomena, interference and diffraction. First one, diffraction is the result of light propagation from various parts of the same wavefront, while interference is the result of interaction of light coming from two separate wavefronts. Second, for diffraction to take place, slit or obstacle is necessarily required, but for interference, no such requirements is needed. Third, and the last one, the minimum intensity points in case of diffraction are not completely dark, but in case of interference, the points of minimum intensity shows complete darkness. So here I come to the end of this session. We now have a clear picture about diffraction and its types. You could refer textbooks like Optics by Ajay Ghatak and a textbook of Optics by Brijlal and Subramaniam for your further understanding. Thank you.